Welcome to another episode of the Offer Letter Candidate Spotlight. And today we have Terrence Regan on the show. Terrence, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is going to be a fun event.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. So, Terrence, for the people who are just meeting you for the first time, can you just give them a quick background of who you are, what you do professionally, and a little bit about your experience as well?
Yeah, so I'm a software engineer. I try to find the problems and identify them and fix them to make the systems better. I do that through a lens of just teaching, of figuring out like what people need and things like that.
You made it seem really simple on that right away. So, what type of problems usually kind of land on your desk, like as a software engineer? Because they can be a lot of different issues.
So I've mostly worked in manufacturing, and things
Okay.
that we've done is I've come into one company in which they had all their systems on one platform, that if they had multiple users at the same time, it would crash the system because of when they first began doing it, they didn't have networking involved. And so it was one user and one computer, and they would do everything by themselves. And then we have multiple users, it caused it to crash it. Don't do things in Microsoft Access ever. And so what I did there is I identified that I was a problem with the software of Microsoft Access, having that issue with the networking and things like that. And I couldn't have the network people fix it. And so what I did is I just moved all their systems from the Microsoft Access database to a different provider, which we use SQL Server. And that just kind of reduced all the downtime, and nothing crashed after that when I was there. So that's one of them. Other things we've done is trying to automate processes as much as we can away from being by paper. If you ever use paper, you know that stuff. People have bad penmanship, and so it looks like a 6 could be a 7. Not software development, but I was in when I was in Buenos Aires, I rented an apartment and I got a Wi-Fi code for the password on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is a very interesting thing, and I am trying to debug what it's saying, and it's like 9A7, things like that. And after like about like an hour of just trying to like figure out all the possible different codes, I messaged the landlord. I'm like, hey, what's the password? And he's like, it's Paraguay.
Oh, that's too funny.
Okay, but none of them looked like Paraguay. It looked like 2s and 9s, and so it's very. But yeah, but like with that one, I like trying to make stuff as easy to do so that the end users don't have issues of like, okay, what was this data actually supposed to be, and allows companies to then make decisions based upon that.
So, before we start talking about some of your like most recent experience, and one thing I did see is you taught English for a while abroad.
Yeah, that was so.
That's pretty cool to see that.
So before I began doing that, I was going to be a professional wrestler, right?
Wait, really?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I want to hear
And
that story too. You know?
and so I'm doing the training on that one, and we're getting ready for like my first match. And
Yeah.
the finish of the match was going to be, spoilers, sometimes it's pre-planned.
Wait, what?
I know, but the finish was going to be, I was going to go over the top rope, I was going to grab the rope, I was going to dangle from it, and then I was going to get kicked, and then I was going to kind of do like a flat back and get counted out, right? And then
That sounds
lose by.
painful, to be honest.
I was young, and it's not that bad.
All right.
And so what happened though is in the training, you go do that spot, I grab it, and when I grab it, I feel my shoulder pop out, and I'm like, ah, shoot, right? And I went from able to do like a bunch of push-ups, being really down to like having like no strength in it.
Oh
And
my God.
I go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, good news, bad news. After we do all the testing, it's like, good news is you don't need surgery. Bad news is it's going to be a year of rehab before you can do wrestling again.
Oh my God.
And at that time, this was before we had the ACA. And so I didn't have insurance. And so it's like, okay, well, I have a year of rehab and I can't afford it. It's like, I don't know what to do. And it's a year. And now, like when I'm older, a year is like nothing. Like it's
Yeah.
like, oh, right. But when you're 19 at 20, you're done. And that same night, my friend messages me and she goes, hey, do you want to teach English in Indonesia? And I go, no, I'm like, I can't teach English in Indonesia. I got like a D+ in English. I'm not qualified. And she goes, no, you have a diploma from a U.S. high school. You're qualified, just apply. And I applied.
Really?
Yeah, at the time. But we can talk about like why I pivoted from things, and I think I'm on things. But at the time, almost anywhere that didn't have the English as a first language, the only qualification you needed was a high school diploma from like a native English speaking country.
Yeah.
And so I applied, and they said yes, and I went there, and it was very It was the first time I did something that I got good at, and I wasn't good when I got there.
So, mean that like, did you get better at just teaching people, or did you get better, or was your vernacular, or was it just grammar, like everything?
There was a conversation that happens to every teacher, and it happens in three different locations. And the first time you have the conversation, you ask, hey, what's a conditional? Like, what's a second conditional? And it's been like 15, 20 years, but like conditionals are like, if I did blah,
Yeah.
and things like that. And you can use them for like dreams and realistic probabilities and things like that. And you go over them and go like, what's that one? And then the second time you have the conversation, you're asked the question of like, hey, what's a conditional? And you explain it. And the third time you have that conversation, you're watching the two people have that conversation because like you know the grammar, you know the language, you know it. It's just you just don't know what it's called. And what the students want is they don't want to be told, hey, this is a conditional, this is a verb, this is a noun. They want to be able to have a conversation and they want to be able to use and they want to write emails and talk to people. And so we focused on Athena just like the skills to give it to people and to receive it. And so like it was we never focused on like grammar per se. It was more of a reading, listening, speaking, writing. But it was really fun. I don't know how much I want to get into this one, but I and so many great experiences with the people. I lived by a I lived in a gated community, right? And outside the gated community was a very poor area. And it was they were nice people, they were fine. But to go from my house through the main gate and all the way around to the bus stop would take me about an hour by foot. But if I would just go through a small gate and go through the Kampung, the poor area, I get to the bus stop in like 10 minutes. Well, one day I get lost going through the Kampung. And I'm like, and the people are like, no, no, you are lost. You can't be here. You are very. And I'm like, and they're like, where do you live? I'm like, over there, that way. And they go, no, 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 you sit, you sit, you sit. I'm like, okay. And they come and they bring me some ramen, some Indomie, and they feed me. And they go get me an Ojak, which is like a motorcycle taxi, to come take me because like you don't belong here. You need to get home, and it's too far away. And so it's always good fun like that. Yeah, it's very good. It was my first time that I dealt with a majority non-Christian population. And so that's when I realized that like most people just want to be people
Yeah,
that
I would agree with that.
that they just want to raise their kids and be loved and be left alone. But yeah, it was good that one. And then after that one for a while, I was fortunate enough that to have my dad have flight benefits because he was a mechanic for United Airlines, and I could take random jobs in like I did a little bit in France, I did a little bit in Poland, in which I would take a theme for like a 2 week contract of just like, hey, just for fun, and because I wasn't paying for the flights essentially, I would just have that for a good amount of fun. But yeah, but back in the day, most places you just need a high school diploma, and then
That
it
is
changed.
awesome to hear.
And then, well, but now it's a lot. But then it's changed to, and this time I was in Indonesia. Indonesia changed it to be well, they needed you to have a bachelor's degree in anything. And so I couldn't get my visa renewed, and that's why I came back to the States. But then after that one, now a lot of places are like not even a bachelor's. You need a bachelor's in the topics that you're teaching.
Wow.
Right. And so it kind of goes with like, what do you want to have on there? And a lot of it is like, okay, it depends why you want them to be teaching that one. Do you want to have it be where you just want them to get to reps and practice a native speaker? Then, having it be a bachelor's, having it be just a high school diploma would have been enough. But then if you want it to be more like getting ready for like an educational experience and being able to like write papers and things like that, then maybe you do want to have someone who has like a more expertise in like a bachelor's and things like that. And another thing is like I can't make the rules for other places. I can just follow them. And so yeah, so after about 3 years of that, and about 3 or 4 years of just like bouncing around different places, I came back to the States and I began doing some real estate investing things. In which what I would do is I would buy contracts of different properties, and then I would just assign the contracts to different people. And then with that, I would use like the public court records to kind of figure out like, okay, who's been divorced and who's inherited a house, who's had major judgments against them, who's had a few other court cases that I would look at to be like, okay, this is what I would do that one. And what I would do is I would then send that address a letter saying like, hey, if you want to buy a house, I'm looking to buy. But then I would also send it to their neighbors too, so that
Interesting.
because I didn't want them to, because like I don't care like why you're selling me the house. If it's a good deal, it's a good deal,
Mhm.
and that one. But I also didn't want it to be like, oh, you're targeting me, and I don't like that. And I know that neighbors
Yeah.
talk, and like, oh no, I got this letter too, or like, hey, did you get and that one. And I stopped doing that one because the regulations changed a little bit on that one of like, okay, if you do too many of the assignments, they kind of view that as being a real estate agent, but it's not, and it's a very gray line.
Okay.
And so it was that, but it was a good. I learned a lot about like contracts on that. I did my first deal I did is I called a partner of mine. I'm like, hey, I have this house, and I looked up the comps, and the comps is like 65,000. But they say that they want to get it for 45,000, and I think that there's like very little repairs to that one. But I don't know what I'm doing. Can you come with me? And he goes, okay. And we have the contract for 45,000, and we look to the house. And on the way down, he's like, hey, when money comes up, don't speak. And I go, okay. And we go through the house, and they go, and we finished the tour, and he goes, so what do you guys think on a price? And they go, well, we told Terrence that we do 45,000, but we just want to be done with it. If you guys can close quickly, we can do 35,000. And I'm silent because he said don't speak. And he waits about, I don't know, it felt like an hour, but it was for like 15 seconds. And she
That
goes,
long, awkward pauses always get
yeah.
people.
And she goes, I think, you know what? I think we could do 30,000. And then another long, long pause. And he goes, is that the best you think you can do? And she goes, 25,000.
God.
And he goes, okay, we can do that. And I know that seems like, oh, we want like a big number down to a small number, but it was a house she inherited from her mom or somebody in her family. She lived in Iowa. She didn't want to deal with it. Even when we did the repairs, it took us about a year of sitting on it and having to maintain it and doing the property, things like that. And so it got rid of her problem on that one. But it was the thing like, okay, sometimes you just have to be quiet and see what happens and do and learn things on that one. But then after that one, we got into trying to figure out how businesses get evaluated and buying businesses and like the processes of doing things. And I learned that people will help out people who are trying to get stuff done. Uh,
Yeah.
because I tried to buy, it was called the Brattle event, and they wanted 2.2 million to buy everything on it. But it included real estate and things like that.
Okay.
And
And
I'm
then I
like,
assume
okay,
all the capital as well, or all
yeah,
the like assets is associated.
yep, all that. But like I don't know what I was doing. And so what I did, and this is before I went back to college, is I emailed all the businesses that did anything with weddings. I'm like, hey, I'm doing a project in on bridal themes, and I'm just wondering if you have time to sit down and talk to me over how you do your business, like how your business works. And I sent that to about like I think 25 different companies, and 21 of them said yes.
Wow.
And I think 5 of them was like, yeah, come by, I'll show you my books. I'll show you everything on that one.
They're just opening up everything for you.
They're like, yeah, we want to teach you that one. And some of them are like, yeah, it's a competition, but like it's a friendly competition. It's like I want to succeed for my clients. And if I hope you have a good experience and you can raise your prices because you're doing a good job, I can raise my prices because I do a good job, right? And we can have some of that back and forth stuff. And somebody was like, no, we don't have time for that one. We don't want to do that on there. Yeah, but just like figuring out like, yeah, I need to get this information. I have this problem. Like, I don't know anything about this thing, and I need to put this together. And I eventually secured the funding for that one through some private capital, but it didn't go through. Because at the time I was only like 23, 24, and I wasn't like the people selling the business didn't want to sell it to me because of just I was too
Too young.
inexperienced. Yeah. Yeah, but it was still a
We can
cool thing.
say
Like,
that now.
I mean, I still have a baby face, so maybe. But then I was doing that. I was like, I'm thinking about like all this business stuff. Like, hey, how do I do these? And I'm like, okay. And I remember I wanted to do a platform that would be kind of like Udemy now, or like Teachable, but not knowing what it was called at that time. And I was like, okay, I want to do that. I want to figure like, hey, how do I get a software developer to like do things? And like, I don't know the BS terms that they would use. And so I remember calling up Amazon like, hey, or like, hey, I want to do this one. Like, what do you recommend on that one? And like not knowing what they're doing, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to school. I'm gonna take a few business classes. And I took one software class. I'm like, okay, no, I'm just gonna do software. Like I can do software. I like this, like the problem sum that comes with and things like that. Yeah. But that was a long tangent. That was a good.
I mean, but like, how often do you hear of people like having so many pivots in their early career until they start finding an actual profession that they're working in, right? Like
Right.
all the skills that you also learn in those early, like the researching skills, the ability to look over contracts, the ability to just have conversations with everybody, and not to like knock on software engineers, but usually they have a reputation that they can't speak to people, right? So, like, just
Right.
building all those skills early on have definitely helped your career.
Hopefully. I mean, it's a and so this is what's really weird is like, okay, I have all these experiences and things like that. And this is where I kind of struggle like, okay, where do I put in the teaching things? Because like that was almost like 15 years ago now. Right? Like,
Yeah.
where do I put all this stuff in? Because like I've done that, and I one of the things I fear is like when I talk about like things that I've done in the way past, like way back when, um, is it like it makes it look like I'm not interested in what I'm doing, of like, okay, I'm just looking for the next thing. But like everything I've done that I've stopped doing was because like, hey, there's a very big unforeseen circumstance that I couldn't have foreseen. I couldn't control. Right? Like I couldn't foresee that I was going to have my shoulder get dislocated and it effectively take me out for a year. I couldn't have seen that the regulations of teaching was going to change dramatically. I couldn't foresee that they were going to change the regulations for contract assignments. Those things I couldn't foresee happening. And now with like software development, I couldn't foresee AI coming. And I think a lot of companies, what they're doing is they see, and I think it's a bad play by them
By
for what they're
companies
doing.
or by
Yeah, yeah, right. I think AI is a great tooling, but what they're doing is they're not taking on junior devs, junior developers, or
mm,
like mid-level devs, and they just want a senior developer because the senior developer has all the tooling and knowledge, and they can use the AI tooling. But now what's gonna happen in 2 years and 3 years when you have no more senior developers and you have that gap of skills because you're not training the juniors and the mid levels. It's very I think the market was oversaturated, but a lot of people are leaving the industry now because it's just you can't get the work that you need. And what's going to happen in a couple of years with companies? And I think the companies that are now like taking the juniors and mids are going to be fine because they can just keep going. But I think a lot of them are going to be like, okay, we need to have the seniors, and we're going to have to pay them a lot more than they are now.
yeah, we could talk about talent development for a very long time, right? Because I completely agree with you. I see this trend already of like, we were talking about it with in another circle the other day. It's just like, this feels like 08, 9, and like the pandemic where people were not hiring junior level people because of financial constraints. Now it's just because they don't have a skill set and they don't want to develop, right? And so
Yeah.
to your point, in 5 years, what's going to happen with the next set of people that are supposed to be those intermediate developers and then trying to get into a senior level role? Like it's going to be interesting in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's very. I think the other thing too, I think people know when people care about them, or when their managers care about them too. And you can tell when that happens and that one. I remember when I was teaching, we had one teacher who was actually like a proper teacher. When he had an interview at like a proper international school, and our manager wouldn't give him the time off to go to the interview. And so our headmaster was like, "Hey, you be sick, and Terrence and me run a couple of your classes tonight, and just go and just do that." And I was like, "Yeah, well, you know, um, because the guy was going to leave either way. Like we would rather him stay with us and finish his contract out than well, you don't care about me at all. I'm going to abandon you and leave. Yeah, so it's always good on that one.
So you transitioned, you went back to school, you got your degree. Did you end up getting it in computer science, software
So
development? Like what
so
did you
so I have 3 degrees. I have 2 associates. One is of just a liberal arts degree. Wisconsin had a thing, and there's the college system changed a little bit, but it was if you get your associates, um, you can like skip last 2 years of college. But my last
yeah,
semester
where
of
all the credits as being a Wisconsinite as well, like all your credits transferred to a 4-year UW system,
yep,
which was a fantastic program.
but not just that, but it also kind of it didn't matter how long it was between your associates and your bachelor's beginning.
Mm.
It would just cover all the gen eds of that one. Whereas if you get the same amount of credits, but you don't get the diploma, and you take a lot of time, you could like have them kind of expire and have to take them again in the future. And so I wanted to get the associates in that one, and that's when I took the programming class. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I forget what I was doing before. I'm going to pivot that one. And so then went to a technical college, and there I got my associates in software development, and I graduated from there. And I wanted to work internationally again because I like not knowing what I'm doing day to day. And so I went to UW Stout and I got my bachelor's in computer science with an emphasis in mobile development and a minor in mathematics. And so that means I can count up to 18. And so doing that one, and it was very different things. Like the Factually Tech was very good at like, okay, here's how you build the software, here's the actual like how you do things in terms of like using the tooling on that one. And Stout was very more like theoretical how to do things. And like, okay, what's the trade-offs and how to think about things more of like performance-wise. The tech was a very good like here's how you build it, and here's the best practices now. And like here's why you do it, but it's okay if you don't really know why you're doing it, just do it, like trust us. And Stout was a lot more like, okay, here's why would this be the best practice? So like why would you do this? And that one a lot more thing about like in depth. When I was at Stout, then I got a internship at and University of Stout has a good system in which you have to have essentially a full-time job when you're there in the field you want to graduate in for a full semester. And so I worked at Thomson Reuters for about 9 months. And there I was on a team. We built software for for lawyers. And the thing was the lawyer would get a case and they would be able to like say, hey, I have this case. I have to do these depositions by then. I've filed these by then. I would give them like a timeline of like when they have to get stuff done. And I would like help track their time on cases.
That's kind of cool. That's like a time management
Yeah.
solution that would definitely help. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. When I was there, we sold, I think it was 2 copies of the system, and it made, I believe it was like, I'm sure my NDA is like expired by now, but I think it was like $8 million for those 2 copies,
Oh my gosh.
and that includes the all the time of development because it was like between an 80 and 40 person team over like I think it was like 6 years, and so like it was a lot of time in development, but it was just like a skill that like this it was to a lot of huge major lawyers, and it wasn't lawyers like the small town, but it was like people would have offices in like 8 cities and 3 countries, and so yeah, it was a good. But a lot of it was like figuring out like, okay, how do you build all this thing? How do you work in an existing team who has all these standards and practices in there, and then how do you speak up when you see stuff like doesn't make sense? And like,
And especially as an intern too, right? Like,
right.
or were you an intern then at that point, or was that a?
It sounds weird. It was an intern, but I was working full time at internship, and I was being paid pretty well for an intern. Not what I'd be close with like you'd make now, what I would make now in the field, but
Yeah.
it was more than my sister makes it her full time job. So like but I was lucky that my team, my first team was pretty. What I did in the first teams, I kind of just helped fix some existing testing that they had because the testing would just be fragile and they would break randomly, and we would get like false positives and false negatives, and like it just wouldn't we couldn't get it to work how we wanted it to, and so we scrapped that testing suite. I mean, we built a new one or we implemented a new one. And so my first one was just a lot of like, okay, I'm just going to take care of tech debt and make things better for the rest of the team. I mean, the team I was on was pretty almost done with what they were doing, and they were going to like more maintenance mode. And then I got moved to a different team like halfway through. And the second team, I had a really good senior developer who wanted us to know why we were doing things. And if someone came on and asked why, he wanted all of us to be able to explain like what decision we made as a team. And so if we had a question on anything, we would like encourage like, that doesn't make sense to me. Why are we doing it that way?
That's cool that it was encouraged to speak up and to just and ask questions.
Yeah, there was one time we had one developer on the team, and he was very slow with his coding. He was an older gentleman, very nice man, but very slow in his coding. Like, I don't get why he's here. I don't get it. Like I don't see he's not performing his skills. Like, I don't get it. And I remember going down, and we had one meeting, and we're going through that one, and he's sitting through that one, he's thinking through things, and he's not thinking, and he has a question, and we scratched what we were going to do with entire sprint because of that question of like, this isn't what you want. Like this, what you want to do isn't what you want. I know it's not what you want. Go back and make sure it's what you want to do because we have this like gap of like knowledge. And it was very interesting to see like how his mind worked. I'm like, well, that's why he's here. He's not here to type fast. He's here to stop us from typing stuff that we don't need that want to get taken back in a few weeks or a few months anyways. Yeah, but having that,
I mean, and that goes back to that early part of what we had this conversation about is getting these senior people into these key roles, right? Like we
yeah.
talked about that earlier in this conversation about we got to keep developing these people that are going to call out like just how processes are going or direction that we're heading to.
Yeah, and it's also a thing of like, how do you also I also learned how to kind of call stuff out, but not make it an attack on somebody.
Yeah.
And like, call them on the bad ideas, but also be able to like praise them on the good ideas. I think you get a lot more genuine ideas and feedback on there. We had one time in which I knew just when I moved over teams and I knew what we had on the plate for the old team and the new team comes up. And we had a new feature they wanted to do and they wanted to like begin doing work on that like immediately. Like we want this done now. And I'm like, we can't do that. Even if we all like dump our other tasks that we have and do all of that, we're going to be waiting on that other team to finish their stuff. And that's not going to be done for at least a month, probably 2 months. So like, why are we rushing to get that done when we can't use it yet? And so there's some behind the scenes things that I didn't know, but eventually they just like, yeah, Terrence is right. We can't do it now. It doesn't make sense to do that one. Let's just keep working on what we were doing to finish up what would, the tasks that we have.
So what type of tools were you using when you were working? You were saying that you're doing a lot of development. What softwares were you using while you were there? What development programs were you using? What
So
languages were you using? Yeah.
so at Thomson Reuters used Groovy, which is an offset of Java.
Okay.
It's Java with syntactical sugar. And so what we would do there is and that's just a big OOP. And like I can't the analogy like I like to give for people who don't use a lot of software is it's kind of having like a Black and Decker and a DeWalt screw gun. Like they're both can do things that you need them to do. You just kind of different buttons to turn them on and
Yeah.
off. But we did that. We did a lot of unit testing and integration testing on that one. We were using AWS for most of the hosting. We also would use Microsoft Azure for something else. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was multiple different things. But mostly AWS, and we would use I can't think of what it was called. We used Terraformations to kind of help build the platform out on there, and then we would use Microsoft DevOps to help kind of track what we were doing for our tasks, and then we would use other tools like Datadog for helping monitor the services. We would use I can't think of the names of software, but it was things like you could like track different packages of messages a little bit easier to do. Those were that one. Tentacle, they used Microsoft Access, and while I did move away from that from the database, a lot of the front ends were built with that one, and so I had to do a few things on that one. Otherwise, I would use C# and .NET because I'm better at that tooling than other ones, and there's a lot more friendly ecosystems for like getting NuGet packages or like toolings to help do things that have already been done. And then and so it says C#, Laser for front ends for like new development, and then at Inland Packaging, C#, and then like .NET, and then again Blazor for like evergreen projects that I took on.
So a pretty wide scope of different tools that you've used in your career already.
I think I would like to do like, and it's weird like what's wide for some people or like isn't wide for others. Like
It's
it's
wide for my knowledge.
yeah. And so like I've done that one. I've also used like Python for like my master's program now,
Yeah.
and a little bit of R, which I don't like R. It's not a good. It's not a great. I don't know. It's a good language for people who need to use it for their team. It gets the job done, but it doesn't give you a lot of like. It's really good for like data that you have existing. It's not great for building stuff out.
So let's talk a little bit about Tenneco as well, because you spent about a year there. You had some great accomplishments while you were there as well. Like, so kind of tell us a little bit. I know. So at Tenneco, you had wrote that you had eliminated some recurring downtime that was costing hours every week. So let's kind of talk about like some of the problems that you were solving there and some of the issues that kind of came up at your time there too.
Yeah, so when I first got there, it was I had a very good manager who kind of went like, okay, here's what we want you to do. We want you to kind of optimize things, but also like fix fires that go out. And he went, okay, here's how you triage stuff: is we need to get stuff out the door to ship it. And so if it's an issue
Because
with,
again, it's a manufacturing company.
it's a manufacturing company, right? And it goes, okay, if you can send stuff out there, cool. If you can't send stuff out, we don't get paid, and we have to
Hmm.
send stuff out. So like, if stuff can't get shipped, fix that. If we can't get tooling, fix that. And I went through all the steps of like, you have to triage stuff. And so it was really good, like guidance of like, okay, how do you handle multiple conflicting things? Because everybody wants this stuff done now. There's one person. And so I'm always grateful that knowledge of, okay, here's how you triage things in that company. And each company is going to be a little bit different for what they care about. Because some companies, yeah, they might be manufacturing things, but we can have some lag time between shipping and stuff like that. We have enough. They didn't have that benefit on that one. They were very send out as quickly as you possibly can.
Right. And if you were working in a hospital, it'd probably be patient care, right, is prioritized, right, versus
Right.
something administrative. So
Well, you would hope.
maybe billing, maybe billing.
Probably billing, probably billing. And so, but one of the problems we had with like all the systems was they were using Microsoft Access, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. Access has a problem, and I don't know if they still do, but if you had multiple people on this network trying to access the same field in the database at the same time or the same row, it would like corrupt the database. And so it would just crash both applications. And what could cause that from happening is if you have two people write to the database at the same time, it could potentially cause it to crash. At least I think that's what it is. I'm not 100%
Hmm.
positive on that. Like, it's not a. I just know that when they were using Access, it would like just crash all the time. And so they wanted to move to SQL Server for other things as well. They already had licenses for that one. And so we just migrated a lot of things over from the Microsoft Access database they had over to SQL Server. And then we would just point the application from the Microsoft Access database over to the SQL Server database. And that just kind of eliminated the downtime. Another thing that you could do with that one is you can normalize tables a lot easier, and you get a lot more database friendly tooling, like seeing views and sort procedures and triggers in SQL Server than you can in Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access is very good for, okay, I'm gonna take that back. Microsoft Access is adequate for when you have like a solo project that's more complicated than a spreadsheet, but you don't want to have like multiple people using it. But I kind of feel like if you're gonna take the time to learn Access anyways, you should just learn the database, because it's not like a big jump between the two of them. But yeah, so just by doing that change, we didn't have any of that downtime. Because what would happen is people on the night shift would go use it at the same time. The application would crash. They can't bring it back up because they didn't trust the team to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get why you just don't have a button that's like, hey, just refresh this. You could do it. It's not a very and you can set it up with permissions where they could just reset the database by themselves. But the company didn't want to do that because there's a reason the company is out of business now. And so they would have to wait till the next morning, in which we would have either me or another one of the like system admins go in and like manually reset all the applications. But that means if an application crashed at say 6 p.m. right after I left, it's from 6 p.m. until the next morning, until like, between 7 and 10 a.m. whenever I got in, because I would work like long shifts, but
Okay.
I didn't have like a set start time because it was like a long drive to come in, and with bad weather, sometimes I could start my day a little bit or later than everybody else, but I was staying until like I did my full, whatever I had to do for the day. And so yeah, so if they had anything to do and they have written it down by paper, now you have the issue of like, okay, now it's that Paraguay issue of like, okay, was that a 7? Was that a 2? Are those measurements good? Are they accurate? Are these measurements that could realistically happen? Or is it like a misreading of things, right? When they had the application on there, the developer that wrote it in Visual Basic, very sweet lady, she did a really good job of like, okay, hey, if you have something that's like not realistic, it doesn't let you put it in. But now,
Interesting.
right, because you could only have two things. It was, I don't know if it was like not realistic, but it was like not realistic, or it was things that like would reject the part being shipped out anyway. So it was a combination of the two. Like one set of numbers like acceptable, one set of numbers a bit wider was like not acceptable to ship out, and like another one was like, that's not a number that this piece could possibly have.
Yeah.
But when you do by paper, you don't have that limitations, and so people could do.
So you ended up leaving Tenneco,
Yeah,
and you went to in.
it was just a contract position. I didn't love the company. So I didn't renew the contract. I told them, I think I told them the contract ended in December. I told them in September, like I'm going to finish this up and I'm just not going to renew it because I wanted them to be able to like find a replacement for me
Sure.
because it was just I know people would like it, nice enough people that just it wasn't for me.
And I mean, and that's a good realistic expectation, right? Like to like if it's not working out for you, why put yourself through that? You're not going to put your whole heart into your work, right? So like somebody else can help figure out these problems and the solution that they had need to come up with.
Well, I mean, I still gave it my best. Like I still put everything into it. I just knew that I wasn't going to. I knew that if I stayed there, I was going to stay at that level of a developer,
Okay.
and that one until I died. And I just don't want to do that. I just felt like there's a lot more things I can do.
And so you went to inland packaging, then then after Tenneco, where again you helped reduce errors and but one of the things is you helped reduce 8 hours of manual processing just down to minutes. So,
Well, hang on. I think I might have it. There might be a typo that I had on there.
or I might just have misinterpreted. You streamlined the checklist.
Yeah. So what they had is right before I got there, they moved from having the checklist for like the products to ship out from being on paper to uh computer computer screens. The problem they had was they would give each time they would have a new product change, they would then send that to a developer to kind of make that an individual website for that one individual checklist, right? Okay, I see why you do that on there.
Yeah.
But the problem with that was that we were fixing all the fires of that company as well. And so we didn't have a lot of time to do things like that. And so it would take on average about 6 weeks from the QA team gave us such like a we want the checklist to look like this to the developer taking it and building it up on the website and then can be tested on the floor to be good to go. And so what I did is like that just seems like a lot of time that's being a lot of downtime because also in 6 weeks, 6 weeks is a long time for requirement change. And so like, okay, let's just say that a company decides, hey, we want to do this thing for a few weeks and switch it over to another thing. And like, we can't do that. Also, the old system had a few technical issues of data not being the best. And so what I did is I began the process of setting up the system so the QA team could then just select boxes and texts to be like, okay, we want these measurements of this, and these are like the maximum minimum requirements and things like that. And they would just do a quick like almost like a Google form Dropbox thing of like measurements for them. And then when that got done, it would automatically build the checklist box for the floor operators for the product that they were shipping. And so it went from being a 6-week time to do that one to like a few minutes on that one. Unfortunately, like we just did beta testing before they restructured the company and my position was deemed not necessary. And so I don't know. Hopefully they finish it up. I would like to be able to be like, hey, did you guys finish it? But like they're under NDAs too. It's
Yeah.
like they can't tell me if they do or not. And so, but yeah, it's just a thing. I'm like, okay, like let's just fix that problem of that one. But like during that time, when I was working there, the interview, I was like, I don't know if I want to do. It was an interview that I did. Like, I don't know if I want to take this job. Like when you begin the interview, like I need to get the practice. I'm gonna do the reps. And the guy in my interview was like, yeah, this job is fully remote. You never you can work wherever you want. And I went anywhere I
That's
want. Yeah, anywhere. And he thought he thought that I meant like Wisconsin and like where I'm at now. But no, I began doing that when I did a week on site for training, and then I went down. I lived in Mexico for like 6 months, and then I lived in Colombia for 3 months, and I lived in Argentina for 6 months when there. But when I began doing that project, we're talking about like what we wanted to do. I'm like, this just seems like a really bad thing. I couldn't figure out like what was happening on that one, and so I ended up taking a flight from Mexico up to Appleton, because they're based in La Crosse, but they had a facility in Nina, and so I just worked out of Nina for about like a 2-3 weeks to work on the software and that one, but also speak with like the people who are like using the Floor application to be like, okay, what's going on? What problems are we having? Why are stuff not working how we want to do? And those are things that you sometimes can't get by speaking with managers.
yeah.
Because
Sometimes that just face to face with the end user, right? It's just going to
yeah,
be so important.
yeah, and things like, hey, what do you have on that one? Like, what things make your life better? Like, why are you? What doesn't make sense with your applications? And like, they would come up with things like, like I don't know why I have to sign in every time I do a thing if I'm the only person in the plan. Why do I have to like sign it 8 times to do things and things like
Yes.
that? And there's some things like security, things like that, but also there's things like you don't have to sign in to do a checklist if you're the only person doing the checklist machine. I think that's when we can say like, that's okay to keep in the system for a while on there. And so yeah, it's just a good things of that one. Like then unfortunately, I just get the email saying like, your position, we're just restructuring the company a little bit, and I knew that I was a well-paid developer on the team, and I know that other people weren't as well paid. And
Yeah.
then also, and the other thing too is like the project that I was doing took a bit longer than I wanted to do. I think this might have something to do with it too. Is um, my philosophy is like I want to have software that when it goes out, it doesn't crash. I want to have like very little low maintenance time. And so I'm going to do a little bit more testing and things to get it good to go. Other developers are shipping out applications a lot faster, but they have a lot more maintenance issues with it later on. But I think when they were looking like, hey, who's developing faster? I think mine was like, okay, it's a little bit slower, and I don't think they were looking at the maintenance headache that was coming with it. But again, it's I don't make the call. It's not my company, and so I can't decide that. But um, yeah, it was good. It was a good experience on that one. I would work for them again if I had the same working experience of like being remote and things like that.
Yeah, I mean that whole performance of who's putting out things faster, right? It goes back. I think Elon just had everybody at X send them how many lines of code they done in a certain amount of period of time. Like it's not a great measurement of what you've done and accomplished, right? So like,
There's a thing with GitHub, and which will show like when you do a commitment, it will show like a how
yeah,
active you are that day. But you can modify that like up to a year in the past,
oh, I didn't know that.
and there are scripts that will modify it to draw you art because it's a bad measurement of it, especially with like GitHub. Because like if I'm working professionally on software, I'm not like where I'm getting paid. I need that downtime. I need to recover. I need to, you know, do the things. I do when I was at my internship at Thompson Reuters, I did a lot of stand-up comedy. My day was I would wake up at 9 o'clock. I would take a quick shower. I would get to the office by 10, be the last one to leave the office at like 6 7 p.m. I would then go to the comedy places and do like I would do. I think the most I did was like 13 mics in a week,
Wow.
but I was doing at least 7 a week. And so you just because like I know the thing too is like also I know that like I didn't have a lot of time in Minneapolis. I
Yeah.
knew that this was a thing. I was like, okay, I can rent for 9 months or 6 months. I had my contract extended by 3 months. And I can sprint and do what I'm doing and do it well and have that separation of like, okay, I'm doing it, I'm doing software stuff, and my mind's on software, full software, and then being like, okay, I have to stop now because I have to be at the comedy place by X time. And then with the comedy, it's okay. I have to stop, 2 a.m. because I have to get home and I have to sleep. And so, but I remember having a conversation with my manager, and she goes, because I got told that the core. I remember the core hours for the business were like, hey, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and then you have to do 8 hours in a day, but you could start at 10. And she comes up to me and she goes, hey, you know that our core hours start at 9 a.m., right? I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, it's at 9 a.m. Like, I thought it was at 10 o'clock. And she goes, okay, but you're doing a really good job and I don't care. It's just, and she goes, so just keep doing your good job and you're fine.
That's a really sweet manager to be able to be like, hey, it's fine.
She also was the one of, and I think every developer has this of like, I'm bad at what I'm doing. Like, I'm just really bad at what I'm doing. I'm not good at what I'm doing. You struggle with stuff that you should be getting, you think you should be doing well.
I feel like
I'm
that's every profession, though. That every profession you're going to have that self doubt period.
right. So anyways, she goes up and we do walk and talk, and I can't remember how it came up. I think I might have been like, hey, I need to get like, I think I sent her like an email like, hey, I need to get some training on this stuff because I just don't, I'm not fast enough or whatever. And we do a walk and talk like a week later, and she goes, just so you know, um, we have people come in and we have interns come in like every year. Um, you are ahead of pace for a lot of them. You don't know what you didn't know yet. You're on the right track. And it's like, okay, that's like a big relief. Like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. But if you don't have that, it's very like, oh, why am I struggling? am I supposed to struggle on this one? Or am I just dumb? I think every profession has it, but I think that that's the point of like having a good talent fostering of like, okay, are you bad because it's a thing of like you're supposed to struggle at this point in time, or are you bad because you don't have the skills that we can where you need to put in that extra time to get up to snuff on that one? And if you don't have that as a company, you're going to struggle, I think.
So you've done a lot in your career. I mean, even like we went from professional wrestling to developer to stand-up comic, right? Like it's a lot. You've also lived all over the world. What's next for you? Where do you kind of think? What are you looking for? What's the opportunities that are of interest to you?
And I say this with a thing like I don't know, and I'm okay with that. Like people are like, oh, you should have a theme. I want to do more software development still. I want to be on that one. I also want to help people identify and solve the problems that they're doing on that. I want to work on a team. I want to be on another team of like, hey, how do we? Because I think there's a big benefit of having that discussion we had like Thompson Word of like, hey, what are we doing and why is this a great idea? Why is this a bad idea? Let's hash that out and spend half a day, at most to kind of like debate what we're doing to make sure everything's on the same page and then just sprint for the next week of like, okay, get that done. As opposed to like, hey, yeah, let's do that one and spend a few weeks doing a project or a few months and be like, that's not what we want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a lot better on that one. I'm also working on my master's in data analytics. So like I like doing like the data and feeling like what we're doing on that one. And so that's on there. But with like AI is like I don't know what's gonna be there too. And I don't know if it's gonna be more of a role of doing things that are more helping people use the tooling now more,
Yeah.
or is it gonna be more of a am I gonna be like a safety check to make sure that what the people are building is safe for the company using the device?
And within governance as well, right?
Right, right. Things like that. And I don't know what that's going to be. And so, but like, definitely, like, I want to be in software. I want to be in a bigger city again. I like you're in a place in which if you don't go someplace, people automatically think that, oh, you just did went to someplace else that was cool. As opposed to like, why don't you go down to the festival in town that everyone went to? Like, because I didn't want to see you people. Whereas if you're in like a big city, you can do a lot of things like, well, I just was doing something else. So people don't think about that. I also have a little bit of like the ADHD thing going on. And so like if I could be in an industry that I haven't done before, it's very interesting because I can kind of like get really hyper focused on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just being a software developer, being a problem solver. I've looked into doing some adjunct teaching, possibly.
Yeah, being in a bigger city would also help that because there's a lot more opportunities for that as well at more colleges and universities as well.
Yeah. And then I have a few projects that I'm working on too that are just like personal projects and things that we might make public. We might have it be like I might make into a business possibly, or we might do something similar to that one. One of my friends when I was in Argentina, his fiance is a child. I don't know. It's a big long Spanish word, but she's like a child. She's like a child therapist for like developmentally disabled children. And so like one of the projects we're doing now is we're kind of helping her set up a tooling to help schedule appointments in different areas in the city.
Oh, that's cool.
Right. Because well the problem that they have is like she has to go on site.
Yeah.
And just like the traffic and stuff like that is it takes her a long time to go from point A to point B. But she has a lot of people like that live close together.
Yeah.
And so when she's scheduling it, they just go like here are the dates, and she has to go like, okay, I have to block out if she has to assume she's leaving her office to go onto the site. And she has to assume that like it's a full whatever it is. But if we can set it up so that now it goes like, okay, you're gonna see John and Jim. John has an appointment in the morning and he lives really close to Jim, and Jim's getting an appointment. It's gonna kind of tell like, hey, can you do it on the same day as Jim's appointment in the afternoon? So now you're not traveling so much and it kind of cuts down on time. And so like that's just like a little side project of it. And if it just works for her, that's great. And if it's something like we could scale out for other people, we could, but then again, it's like, okay, I don't know what the business side of it is either of it. And like, how do you monetize it and things like that? And it's like, I don't care about the money as much as I do as solving the problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really cool project, right? Because you can develop this in so many different ways too, right? You can develop it to be on top of an LLM where it starts learning traffic patterns too, and you can understand what's a much faster way I'm assuming Argentina is using WhatsApp, so you can have a platform that would talk into that and can automatically text everybody about what it's calling, right? So there's
Yeah.
just it's a fascinating project that you're working on right now.
It's WhatsApp is funny because like it's every place uses it except the US and China.
Yeah, yeah,
And people are like, why do you use WhatsApp? Like, because I have friends that use it. I don't.
yeah. That's how I talk to my family in Europe
Yeah,
and stuff.
it's very good. I like WhatsApp. I do. It's a good platform for what I use it for at least. Yeah, and so there's other things too that I just do that one, and then I'm doing a few personal projects to kind of get better at like just the general learning more about the different trade. Also, for more complex projects of like one of them trying to do is just like a basic goal application of planning stuff out on like being able to set goals a bit easier and be able to measure them a bit faster and a little bit more. That one, which isn't like a big like to do, like it's a pretty high level, it's pretty simple, but it's more of like using different like domain driven design and more testing and more things like that, and more like cloud architecture with it, so I can show that I can do the cloud stuff.
And I'll be honest, every HR technology does this terribly. If you ever want to get into the HR side of doing goals and performances, it is done poorly on the HR side.
It's so what I can't think of what it's called, and I'm sure you know it, but it's that the paradox that like whatever you measure, whatever you deem to be like a good term to measure success becomes a bad measurement of success. Like they did one in which they wanted to measure surgeons' success by like how many of their patients died.
Seriously?
Yeah, look, which sounds like a good measurement. Like, yeah, we want to how many of your patients survive is how you get graded. But then they found out what happened is surgeons would not do surgery to people who were like critical. And it's like, they're gonna die either way. And if you do the surgery, they might live. But if you don't do the surgery, they're gonna die. But because he had the thing like if they died and you took it, it hurt your record, so they wouldn't
Yeah.
take it. And so it's like anything you do is a bad will gain the system. Lines of code is another one. Like, hey, it makes sense for line of code, but um,
There's going to be bad lines of
we
code in there.
we had a I remember a conversation of just like clearly like a joke debate that I came into, and they were trying to prank me. But one person said that we should have everything on one line of code so that our percentage of test coverage of the tech coding would be 100% because it would be in that one line. And another person's like, no, we should add extra spaces, extra blank lines between everything so we have a higher percentage of lines of code. And they went back and forth for like 5 minutes, but it was clearly like a prank on like the new guy coming in there. But it was like, how do you measure things? Do you measure it on by like, the maintenance cost, how much time you take to like run the applications, or are you measuring it on the manpower cost of like developing in it? Like, are you measuring it on the profitability of the business? Are you measuring it on things of like, okay, hey, when we have this tooling, we have people stay longer? Like, what are you measuring it on? Like, how do you do that? It's very like we don't know.
Yeah. Goals are always a hard one to measure on because there's going to be with any good intention behind it, people are going to figure out how to get around it.
And then you also have issues with some goaling of call it the analogy I give is the being like a football coach and telling your players that you just want to have more touchdowns. Like, yeah, that's a great like goal, but like you can't like measure that in terms of like you can't like improve of that. Whereas if you're like, hey, we want to focus on like the run game, you could then show different like small measurements that can add up to and eventually get to the touchdown. And so you have those like trailing teams, like, yeah, that's the goal, but also you can't get to that one without other stuffs in the way.
So we've covered a lot, Terrence. Anything that we missed over, anything that we skipped over that you wanted to bring up before we conclude today's conversation?
I don't no, I think we covered a lot of good stuff on that. I just want to get back to being on a team and developing things and helping solve the problems. Um, one of the things I remember learning is like you get better doing things by teaching people how to do it with you. And so that's why I kind of
Okay.
want to be back on a team where like, hey, let's have that conversation. Like, hey, what are we doing? And like doing those code reviews in which like I think that's not a good way of doing it because XYZ. And like, why are you doing that way? And sometimes the opposite happens. Like, hey, they do things like, well, I didn't think about that. That's a cool way of doing that. That's really cool. Like how you did that. That's
Right.
better than what I would have done. I just want to get back on a team. I want to be developing again. I want to be working for like a good company that um does good. And so, yeah.
And Terrence, this has been a wonderful conversation. Like it's been a fun learning about your background. If people want to know more about you, reach out to you. Best way to have them get a hold of you.
So if you want to message me for like some software stuff, I do LinkedIn. And Brian will post a link on that one. It's Terrence Regan with a bunch of numbers at the end of it, and I can't remember them. And then
It's
there's a lot of Terrence Regans in the world. By the way, I got a summons to go to court in New York City about like 2 years ago.
for a
And
different Terrence.
well, so I get the summons to go there for that one.
Yeah.
And I call up the DA and I'm like, hey, I can't afford to go to New York City. Could you help? Can you help me get there for like the tickets on there? Like, okay, why can't you afford to go to New York City? Because I live in Wisconsin. And they go, well, why do you have to go? You summoned me to go there. And they go, and they looked at the case, and it was my name, and it was that one, and it was um it's how I learned that 12345 is a zip code in New York City because that's where the guy
Really?
lives. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it might be New York State, but it is 12345. And so, but yeah, they like, oh no, it's a different guy. It's not even you. He's like in his 70s. But he just would do things, and he would use like my email address because I would get random emails from New York City like, hey, this is But I think what he would do is he would just use his name as an email, and they'd be like, I'm not doing with this. I'm done. I don't need you. Yeah. So anyways, there's more than one of me at least in the U.S. Yeah, but anyway, so that's my LinkedIn. That's probably the best way for like software development stuff like that one. If you want to get hold of me for like the comedy, if you want to book me for comedy, you can always do that. I take that at the Bogella, THE.BOGELLA@gmail.com. Either one will be good. Either way, reach out to me and hopefully we can work out and improve both of our situations.
Terrence, it was a pleasure learning about your background, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much. This was
All right. Yeah, it was a great conversation, Terrence.